Yeah, baby. We back at it again on Extremely Average Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm wearing the same shirt. It's fine. If you watch the 101 video, I'll be wearing them for 3 different videos today. I'm trying to get it in gear. It's big draft weekend coming up, and I haven't posted anything. I didn't know if I was going to. I'm average out here. Who knows what we're doing? I don't know what that was. Get me out of here. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you haven't checked out What is Fantasy Football, that's my other video. Go ahead and hit that up if you're just starting. On today's video, we're going over draft strategy. How do you dominate your draft? How do you go out and get the guys? How can you guarantee to get the guys that you want? Here's the deal. Nothing in life is a guarantee, man. Nothing in life. My number one advice is to play the board. Be flexible. Take what everyone else gives you. Now, that might sound like a beta move, but honestly, if your squad is just going on a run of running backs and you've got these elite wide receivers sitting here and you're toward the end, you don't have a choice. Like, don't take the crappy running back just because everyone else went on a running back spree instead of taking the high value receiver that's sitting over here screaming at you. All right. And if you be flexible, if you wanted to, my thing is I love taking running backs early. But if what happens, like I just described, happens in my draft, I'm not passing up. I'm not getting a worse value player just because in my head I said I wanted to go running back heavy. Don't be stubborn. Play what the board gives you. It doesn't matter where you draft. It matters how you draft. Be flexible with that game plan. Obviously, scout the players, right? We got to know who's good. We got to scout the teams and know what their tendencies are like. And kind of that gives us an idea of where the value is or what to expect from a player and expect from a team. I really like Jahmyr Gibbs for this year. This is the 2023. I really like Jahmyr Gibbs, but I have to understand that if I draft Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not getting all the carries. He's probably splitting work. This is what they've done year in and year out. The Lions have used multiple running backs, typically 2, but it's going to be a split. It's going to be a timeshare. I can't draft Jahmyr Gibbs and expect that I'm going to have every carry. So it depends on how my team is building out. If I went with a Nick Chubb earlier, who is one of the best pure rushers in the league, then I probably have the flexibility to go with a Jahmyr Gibbs for my RB2. But I don't want, if I ended up somehow in a position, maybe I'm at the back of a draft, if I'm toward the turn, and I get like a Ramondre Stevenson and a Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't like that. I do not, because I know that both of the Ramondre Stevenson, he broke out last year, heck of a ball player. He's going to get vultured at the goal line. Jahmyr Gibbs, young, talented. They're going to use him a ton. But what did they do before? DeAndre Swift was a pass-catching guy. Jamal Williams was the hammer dude at the goal line. I don't see it really changing much this year. So I just have to know those players, know their tendencies, and know the teams that they play on. Brian Robinson for the Washington Manders. Brian Robinson's the hammer guy, and then Antonio Gibson is going to be the pass-catching back. So I know what the teams like to do. Vikings this year. New offensive coordinator. They got rid of Dalvin Cook. They're left with Alexander Mattison. This new offensive coordinator really likes to pass the ball. So if I got a chance to get Justin Jefferson, I'm going for it. If I don't have a chance to get Justin Jefferson, I'm going for Jordan Addison, hyped up rookie that's taking over for Adam Thielen's role. Tons of targets available there. And so it's kind of knowing that you have to do your research. You can't go in there blind. If you go in there blind, you just go by ADP, that's probably fine, but you're going to miss out on some people. Find value. Look for players being drafted later than they should, players that you think are going to outperform their ADP. I'm a sucker for a bargain, man. So if I don't like the Jahmyr Gibbs round 2, round 3 pick, and I want a piece of that offense, then I'll get David Montgomery down in like round, I don't know where he's going, 5, 6, 7, something like that, probably. Then I can get the other person. Same thing. If I don't have a chance to get Justin Jefferson with the Vikings, I just mentioned, I get Jordan Addison fairly late, and he is a heck of an athlete coming into a bunch of targets. Tyler Lockett has been a value this year. He keeps falling in drafts, and I'm not sure why, but I love Tyler Lockett. I like Antonio Gibson. The guys that I've already mentioned, I'm mentioning them because I like their ADP. I like their value and what they bring, especially if I'm in like a half PPR or a full PPR. Like Antonio Gibson is a great grab at the end. So always look for that value. I like Jalen Hurts. I like Josh Allen. I like Patrick Mahomes. So does everybody else. But that that price is so steep where you have to get those guys. I can get a Justin Fields, maybe a round or two later, right? I like Travis Kelce. I like Mark Andrews. TJ Hawkinson, he just got paid. Pay attention, follow the money. Your boy just got paid, so he might be all right. I'm not drafting Kyle Pitts where he's at, but I'm burned on him, What I'm saying is I like a Pat Freiermuth or a David Njoku. Dallas Goedert I might go up on depending on how the draft is falling, but I can find these guys that I think are going to perform fairly well. And especially if the gap isn't that much farther, the gap is pretty far between Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and anyone else. So, it's understanding where the value is and how you want to build your team. I'm looking for upside. I want players that have a great chance, especially at the end of the draft. I'm looking for upside. I'm looking at like toward the very end. If we're looking at that, I'm looking for like a Jaylen Warren, who's already it's running back for Pittsburgh Steelers, who's already being utilized in a regular game plan. And should something happen to Najee Harris, the number 1, he's immediately going to step into a big time role versus like the New Orleans Saints backfield. Alvin Kamara, who's going to be out for 3 weeks. So you have Jamal Williams, but then also Kendre Miller's in there. And you've got like 3 guys that are kind of fighting for a spot out there. That's a little muddy for me. I like a Tank Bigsby at the end of the draft where he is already getting work with Travis Etienne. And so if something happens with Travis Etienne, or maybe they start to utilize Tank Bigsby more, then he has an opportunity to step right into a role. I like, Jackson Smith-Njigba is a big guy, a big name that's coming out of Seattle, rookie wide receiver. I do like him. I think there is talent and upside there. Again, he's got to go through Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf to get there, so kind of a tougher road. Jordan Addison is my upside guy because he's coming. Adam Thielen's no longer in Minnesota. He's coming in to fill in that role. A ton of targets are there. Gabe Davis is another one. Mike Williams is another upside kind of guy. I'm looking for players who can go out and win you a week, especially later on in the draft. It does me no good to have a conservative pick after pick after pick after pick. I love Derrick Henry. I love Tyler Lockett, but I don't want to a Derrick Henry, a James Conner, Tyler Lockett, Hollywood Brown, kind of roster with a Geno Smith. Nothing against any of those. Like, those are all really good fantasy players, but they're all really good floor players. I know I'm never going to get burned. Derrick Henry's never going to goose egg me. Hollywood Brown should not goose egg me because he should be the number one guy in Arizona. I don't know who's throwing to him. Kind of same thing with James Conner. James Conner is running back for Arizona. Nobody behind him really to challenge him on the depth chart. So I know that he's going to get everything. Those are great players to plug in if you have like a Mike Williams, a Christian Watson, guys, like that are boom or bust. And you kind of want to have that floor as just a safety measure. It's a good mix, but you don't draft conservatively all the way through. It does you no good to be in 6th place in your league at the end of the year. You get no money. You might as well be last place. If you ain't first, you're last, baby. Let's get it. Okay, so be flexible, right? We talked about that. Taking whatever the draft gives you, whatever the best player available is. Don't be stubborn. Scout players and teams and know their tendencies and their strengths and weaknesses. Finding value, looking for players that are drafted lower than they should, that are going to outperform their ADP, their average draft position. We're looking for upside, talented guys that are going to make big plays and win you a week by themselves. Like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, either of those guys can win you a full week. Mock draft. Practice makes perfect. Practice, especially if you know what format you're playing on and you know which spot you're drafting in. If you're drafting first, if you're drafting 6th, if you're drafting 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, practice doing mock drafts at those positions, at those spots in the draft, and see how kind of what the board's looking like, what players you can expect to get, what players you keep seeing falling in the draft. Play with and practice mock drafts with real people who are also in there. You can do a computer simulated mock draft, but that's just going to take the ADP. It's not very realistic. So get into a draft room with other people and do a mock draft. Another draft strategy that I kind of mentioned, there's a hero RB strategy where you're going to take a running back basically with your first pick, and then you're going to go with other positions, maybe a quarterback, wide receiver, a tight end, something like that, until about the 6th, 7th round, and then you'll hammer out those running backs toward the end. Some people play that. If you're in a full PPR, might not be a bad strategy because you're getting a point per reception. Receivers typically get more receptions, so maybe that's your strategy for a full PPR. You could go with a hero wide receiver too and just do the opposite, right? Draft a receiver in the first, then hammer out your running backs and other positions, then come back to receivers later in the draft and finish those out. Quarterbacks and tight ends are a big deal this year. They are going early, and I think that's what happened last year, kind of leaned toward this. I would pick one. I would pick one to go for. I would not, if you draft a quarterback and a tight end, like one of the elite ones, if you get the Mahomes Kelce stack, that's pretty awesome. But man, you are giving up some really good running backs and wide receivers, and you're losing out on top tier guys. I know that you're getting a top tier quarterback and a top tier tight end, but the gap really starts to widen, and you're giving up a lot. So I would choose. I would choose. Do you want Patrick Mahomes? Do you want Travis Kelce? Do you want Josh Allen? Do you want Mark Andrews? Do you know? I would look at that and practice during your mock drafts. You'll see. If you practice those mock drafts, you'll see that your wide receiver and running back room gets really, really thin. And you might be struggling for some people. My strategy for defense and kickers is that's my last 2 picks. And I might not even fill that. If my settings, if it allows me to not select a kicker or a defense, I might draft an extra position player to see how things shake up leading up to that week 1. And then, before the first game, obviously, I would dump whoever, really wasn't showing up or really wasn't talked up. I would just dump my worst player, and then I'd pick up a kicker or a defense to start the league. But at this point, coming into this weekend, you probably just want to go ahead, pick up a kicker and a defense, but make those your last 2 picks. Don't be the guy that goes out and chooses a defense in like the 6th round. Or if we're drafting together, be that guy. Please be that guy. But say those to the end. Another advantage that you can do is look at the strength of schedule for teams. I haven't done this. I don't have any examples to give you whatsoever, but you can look at the strength of schedule. I like to get off to a good start. So I'm probably looking at what is the strength of schedule for running backs for the first 4 weeks? What is the strength of schedule for the wide receivers for the first 4 weeks? Get me off into a good start, and then we can go from there, because teams are still finding their identity through like the first 4 to 6 weeks. It takes a while for people to get into football shape. Injuries happen. There are a lot of things that play out. So I just look at the first 4 weeks. What is a good schedule? And that might be a tiebreaker for me. Like, I'm not going to put my whole draft around that, but it is a really useful tool. Some other things you can do when you're drafting: you can stack. You can stack people. We talked about stacking Patrick Mahomes with a Travis Kelce. You can do a Jalen Hurts with an A.J. Brown, or Jalen Hurts with a Dallas Goedert. That is something that I'm more comfortable with, the Jalen Hurts and a Dallas Goedert, because I know that I can get Dallas Goedert a little later on, and Jalen Hurts isn't going to be the first quarterback to go off the board. And so if I get Jalen Hurts, and then I can kind of watch the tight ends go, I can watch Kelce and Andrews and T.J. Hockenson and Kittle. Once they go, then I have some time, and I can fill my roster in a little bit, and before I pick up that tight end. You can do that with a running back. You can do that. Typically, you do it with a receiver. I would suggest doing that on a high-powered offense, a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase kind of a thing. It does. If you believe in that offense, and I believe that the Bengals are going to be good, right? It just kind of lessens your chances of things going awry, right? Like, I know that Josh Allen is just going to hit up Stephon Diggs constantly over the year. I know that they're going to be passing. I know that they're going to be on a good team. Those are 2 strong players. That increases my chances of winning that week, because that's 2 of the best players on one of the best teams, and they're going to perform week in and week out. That's a pretty safe bet. I might not go Derek Carr and Chris Olave. I don't have the same confidence there. I might do a Kirk Cousins and a Justin Jefferson. I might even do a Kirk Cousins and a Jordan Addison, because Kirk Cousins cost me nothing. So just something to think about. You can stack those if you really believe in that team, really believe in those players in that offense. It can improve your chances of winning that week. You want to look for mobile quarterbacks. If I can, I'm trying to take Justin Fields. We talked about finding value. Patrick Mahomes is expensive. Josh Allen, expensive. Jalen Hurts, expensive. I like a mobile quarterback, so I'm skipping over Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Trey Lance. Not Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence. Not even close. Very different people. One is a starting quarterback for Jacksonville Jaguars. The other is the 3rd string quarterback for the now Dallas Cowboys. So those are very different. I'll pass on Trey Lance too, though. I will say that. So I like a mobile quarterback. I'm not getting one of the top 3 mobile ones, and I'm not looking for a pocket passer in Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. I'm trying to get Justin Fields. Upside. upside, upside, upside. Rushing, you get more points than you do with passing. And if Justin Fields levels up in his passing game like we all hope that he does, then that is a great value pick for me. Knowing your league format and your scoring system, right? If I'm at a full PPR, I'm looking at only pass-catching running backs. I'm looking at an Austin Eckler, a Saquon Barkley. I'm looking at a Josh Jacobs. I'm looking at Antonio Gibson. I'm looking at a Zach Charbonnet at the end of the draft. I'm not interested in Brian Robinson. I'm not. Because Brian Robinson doesn't catch the ball. And he's also on the Washington Commanders, and they're probably going to be passing the ball a lot anyway. So that goes back into knowing your scoring format and knowing the team's tendencies and the player strengths. What I don't want to do, I do not want to have other than a quarterback in another position. I don't want to have 2 wide receivers from the same team. I don't want to have 2 running backs from the same team. I don't want to have a running back and a wide receiver from the same team, really. I don't want to fight myself all season. Which wide receiver for this? Do I think Keenan Allen's going to get the points, or do I think Mike Williams is going to get the points this week? Do I think that Brian Robinson is going to get more rushing touchdowns? Do I think Antonio Gibson is going to get more points? Do I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get more points? Do I think David Montgomery is going to get more points? I don't want to fight that. Do I think that, Stephon Diggs, there it is. Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis is going to get more points. Do I think that Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson do I think Jamar Chase or T. Higgins is going to get? Do I think that Jamar Chase or Joe Mixon is going to score more? I talk about the quarterback in another position because the quarterback will throw the ball to another position. If it's a running back and a wide receiver, or a wide receiver, they have no correlation to each other. There's no benefits of points at all. You're fighting yourself and you're running into a headache every week. Last year, I had DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Now, DeAndre Swift was hurt a lot, so that was a little easier. But once he was healthy, who am I going to start? I don't want to start all of the Lions. Like, I don't know if I believe in the Lions that much. So don't put yourself in that position. Don't run into a headache. And then careful with bye weeks. This is kind of a tiebreaker for me. I don't really go all in on it. But losing 1 week is fine, but man, anytime you can win, wins are tough to come by sometimes. So I don't want to draft a whole bunch of people that aren't going to play on week 13. Now, week 13 is like far out there. I've got some time to work around it, which is why I don't hold strongly too much to this. I don't put too much weight into this, but it is a helpful tip. You don't want to have 6 guys on bye the same week. So just be mindful of the bye weeks that are coming through. That kind of goes over with the draft. I mean, these are things you should be looking out for, things that you're mindful of. Pay attention. Keep an eye on your roster as the draft goes along. Know what you need. Don't sit there and lollygag. Right? I FaceTime with my buddies because we're across states, and sometimes I can get distracted. Pay attention to the roster. Pay attention to what you need. If you are drafting at the turn, understand. And I say the turn, like if you're drafting either like first, second, third, or maybe not 10th, 11th, 12th, where you're going to be drafting, then it's going to be a long time. And then you kind of come back and almost have back-to-back picks. Don't just look at like the top 6 players on ADP. Understand that you have like 24 picks before your next pick. Right. So be mindful of the players that are underneath that. Pay attention to your roster, what you need, what's available. Don't get distracted, and be wary of the Q system, the QE, the QUE, the QUE, however you want to say it, however you want to pronounce it. I believe it is Q. That is it. I think we should just have one letter, the letter Q, to say that. But for whatever reason, we spell it Queque or Keke in Espanol. Be mindful of that. If you put players on your queue, if you run out of time and you don't know what's going on, if you're on a platform you've never drafted before, it's going to take the first person at the top of your queue. For me, I really have to pay attention to that because I will go through position by position and I will queue up players. So I know who to look for before the draft starts. So I'll go through my quarterbacks and I'll queue up quarterbacks that I would like, just so whenever it comes up on ADP, it's just easier to see on the list who I'm interested in. I'm still going to read the names and stuff, but it just kind of puts a little signal, hey, pay attention. If you still need a quarterback, you were interested in this guy. If you still need a running back, you were interested in this guy. So I do that for myself, but I really have to know the format. I have to pay attention because the last thing that I want to do is maybe I do take Justin Fields and Joe Burrow is still on the board for whatever reason. It comes around, oh no, my internet goes out. Right? Or I can't find my way back to the draft room because I've got 7 windows open trying to do research in the middle of the draft. And now I end up with Justin Fields and Joe Burrow. Sucky. That's terrible. I'm almost in panic mode. The draft is almost over for me. The season's almost over for me. And now I'm on recovery. And I just wasted a very valuable round. So be careful there. And let's see, what other quick little reminders? Sum it up. Let's just sum it up and get on out of here. Be flexible. We talked about that. Get the guys you want later in the draft. Yo, if it's like the 6th round and beyond, maybe 5th round. If it's a 6th round and beyond, go get the guys you want. Reach a round or two. That's fine. I don't know about 2 rounds, but you can reach for a round, especially if you're at the turn. You can reach because you don't know if they're going to come back to you. And at that point, we're just trying to fill our roster with people that we believe in, people we think have upside. So don't take Deontay Johnson because he's right, or Hollywood Brown because they're right there in front of you. If you want to go down and get Antonio Gibson, go down and get Antonio Gibson. You know, like have an idea of the people that you want, and don't be afraid to reach a little bit, especially later on in the draft. We're looking for upside, we're looking for value. Practice makes perfect. Get on a mock draft. Know how to navigate that platform. If your draft is on ESPN and you've never been on an ESPN league, you best believe that I'm going to be on ESPN doing mock drafts so I can kind of see how their system is set up and know how to navigate that platform. Sleeper is one this year that I've never drafted on. I'll be doing mock drafts on Sleeper for sure, just so I know where everything is set up. Where can I find my roster? Where can I find my queue system? Where can I whittle it down and filter it down to just where it shows running backs? Where's the ADP list? You know, how do I get back to all the players? How do I get over to just wide receivers and filter those out? How do I see other people's teams? I want to be able to know how to navigate that before the clock starts ticking on me, because everybody that's done one knows that you will panic. There's going to be a point in the draft where you will panic. So try to stay calm, know the platform, know how to get back to the draft, and make a good selection so you don't mess up. We're paying attention. We're not getting distracted. You know, and last piece of advice, know that the roster that you start with is not going to be the roster that you end with. You are going to be working throughout the season. The last picks of my draft, I'm taking moonshots. I'm thinking, you know, Rashee Rice, who might be, you know, maybe he gets up there and he is one of the big guys for the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, an electric offense and stuff like that. So I'm taking moonshots anyway. And then after a week or two, if Rashee Rice isn't doing anything, dude, drop that guy, go pick up somebody else. Somebody gets injured, we're dropping and we're picking up somebody else. We're trading with other people to try to strengthen our team. The the team that you end the draft with is not the team that you will end the season with. Never give up. Never surrender. That'll be all for us this week on Extremely Average Fantasy Football Podcast. I said it's all for this week. I'm about to turn around and I'm about to do a mock draft. So if you've listened to this and you like it, there's going to be a video on my channel as well for a mock draft. Make sure you find that and see how I go through for a real mock draft. Thanks again, everybody. Good luck this season. Let's get it. Let's go, baby. It's time for some fantasy football.